Get security without fees, and better yet, without the security companies. Check out Piper. It's an all-in-one home security and home automation system packed with a camera, multiple environmental sensors, and even a blaring siren. Get notified when the motion or sound is detected and see exactly what's going on directly from your mobile device with an encrypted live or recorded HD videos. It's easy to use and there's no wiring required. Starting at $199, you'll have a security system that you can customize to focus on exactly what matters to you. Go to getpiper.com/untitled and collect $25 off any Piper or Piper bundle.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good morning.
You just absorbed something brand new.
I did.
I don't think you knew it was out there.
I didn't somehow. Did it just show up on the internets this morning?
Just 3 hours ago.
All right, so I haven't been on the internets yet today.
I woke up to a bunch of Twitter messages saying, "Hey, Will, Norm, Adam, have you guys seen this? It's really good." And it turns out
It is really good. This is the trailer for The Martian, Ridley Scott's version of Andy Weir's book starring Matt Damon, Donald Glover, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig,
Kate Mara,
Jeff Daniels, Kate Mara, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who I never knew how his name was pronounced, but in my head it was Chiwetel Ejiofor, and it turns out
right.
that's exactly
You're the
how to
only
pronounce
one
it.
in the world.
I thought if I ever met him, I'd insulted by pronouncing it that way. Nope, that turns out to be exactly as it's spelled.
as somebody who has a name that is worth commenting on every time you introduce yourself to someone,
It is. I've probably
assure
talked about
you.
it before,
he's used to it.
but he is one of my favorite actors, actually.
Really?
I just watched Children of Men again.
Is he in Children of Men?
He
Oh,
is.
of course.
He's one of the
He's
insurgents.
the one who betrays them.
And
Really?
he's, first of all, Children of Men, if you haven't seen it, it's Cuarón
Yeah.
who did Gravity, and it's an amazing movie. It holds up incredibly. It's just like visiting Heathrow Airport.
In a single shot.
In a single shot. It's not a single shot, but there are some extremely long sequences.
I don't know if I would watch that again. Like, I loved the movie the first time. It was amazing. But I feel like I got some movies. I just feel like I have everything I need out of that first viewing.
I know that I also kind of felt like that for the longest time, but I was on a plane on a cross-country flight, and I had the time, so I watched it. And I must tell you, it's not as brutal. It's not as brutalist as I remembered from the first time. And Chiwetel Ejiofor is amazing. Julianne Moore is incredible.
Michael
and I
Caine.
love, she often plays to it. She often gets cast to play a kind of a flighty, slightly unmoored type of character. I just think of her in like Magnolia, and this is her playing a hard-edged, totally kick-ass insurgent, wanted by the police protester, and she's badass
With conviction.
with conviction.
But with that glimpse of the sorrow, because they had that. The past.
And Clive Owen, I think, is also an amazing actor, and I can't watch enough of him, and he's incredible in this movie. He's a super ambivalent hero.
I saw that movie in theaters and walked out just weeping, like openly weeping.
Yeah.
Most of the theater was. I kind of looked around. I was like, anybody who's not really.
It's not that bad the second time.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's really worth seeing because it's an incredible technical film.
Well, speaking of Cuarón and Gravity, The Martian's kind of like the anti-Gravity in a sense, where it's a survivalist story, but instead of doing it completely alone, literally it says in the trailer that first opening line in the trailer, it's about the world coming together for one man's survival. Now we talk about The Martian a bunch.
Do we reveal the talking room here?
Yes, we have a talking room.
It'll be up
Andy Weir
this week.
And
Yeah.
yes. So
Finally.
we reached out to Andy Weir, who's a local, and we had him on the talking room, and we talked extensively about The Martian. We talk a bit about the film because it was just starting. Literally, it started production a week before I interviewed him. So he hadn't visited the set yet. Of course, there's that famous photo of him in Budapest with Matt Damon on the set. He hadn't done that yet. So it's very exciting. I mean, we all read the book. We're all totally obsessed with it, and I know that a tremendous number of tested readers and viewers went and read the book based on our recommendation. The trailer is phenomenal.
I'm going in cold. I'm taking the Joey Family approach to this one, and I saw those initial screens from EW, the grabs of the suits. I was like, Okay, I'm good. I know I'm going to go see this movie. There's no amount of trailer watching that's going to convince me I should or should not.
Yeah.
I'll be there first night, midnight, with bells on. So
it is.
yeah.
We've had 3 years now of like kind of quote unquote hard science space movies with Gravity, Interstellar, and I think it feels like it's all culminating to The Martian.
Well, and so when you said the anti-gravity, I mean, what's funny is that between Interstellar and Gravity, I actually vastly preferred Gravity, even though it's far less rooted in hard science.
Right.
I mean, Gravity plays so fast and loose with physics.
Orbital
on many
mechanics,
scales, orbital mechanics, and also even down to her not exhaling as she's coming up at the end out of the water.
All right, so Adam, I presume you mean to say that unlike Gravity, Interstellar had this kind of reverence to science that permeated throughout the film, that dominated the story.
Throughout all the press materials about it. And Gravity, too, talked extensively about wanting to make a very realistic movie about space. The thing that Gravity got right, so let's understand. We understand how deeply Interstellar was committed to getting interesting and accurate visualizations of black hole, event horizons, etc., and where they cheated a little
Relativity,
bit. They were
and
honest about it. Yes. And Gravity, Chris Hadfield told me that Gravity really is the first film he saw that really gets you to feel what it's like to be on a spacewalk and look down and see Earth.
He has the perspective to know this.
It turns out he knows this sort of thing. But the thing that really separated The Martian for us as a book, and the reason I read it twice and listened to the audiobook once, and by the way, the audiobook, I'll stump for it again, is phenomenal.
Really good.
Is that everything in it is possible. There's one leap that the plot of the book makes, and it's the flexibility of spacesuits. Mm-hmm. It posits that they're more flexible than they currently are, and that problem has been solved. And they don't really talk about how, but I have no problem with that as a technological.
You assume in the 20 or 30 years between now and when this happens, we will work out flexible spacesuits.
JPL gets a really nice entrance gateway.
Do they?
In the opening shot at JPL, you see the buildings in the back. It's like, that looks really nice, those buildings.
The trailer looks terrific.
It's Ridley Scott. He knows how to tell a story.
He really does. He's got an incredible cast. We named a whole bunch of them. The costume designer is one of my favorite costume designers in the world, Janty Yates, who's done most of Ridley Scott's films recently. She did Gladiator. She also did Prometheus. I think the Prometheus helmets are perhaps my favorite space helmet in film history.
In general are amazing, yeah.
And there's Prometheus influences in Mark Watney's helmet in terms of the large bubble of glass with internal gold visors.
Yes.
Very fascinating. Yes. Plus a very a workaday sort of you can see there's a quick release on his right for potentially, I guess, removing part of the suit. And in the book, he's constantly taking the suits off and putting them back on and then using the extra suits he has left over from the other astronauts to deal with various problems he has.
He parts them out. It's amazing.
And you get to see this suit that feels like a modular thing.
Yeah.
And that I'm super excited. Of course, I am going to make a Martian spacesuit. I have to.
Even if you are going to try to avoid spoilers and don't want to watch the trailer, because people who read the book, you can watch that trailer and pick out, oh, that's a scene from this part of the movie, that scene from this part. Oh, that dialogue is probably at the end. It's a really nicely edited trailer to not give too much away. They also produced this 3 minutes, I think just for the web, introduction to the cast members, done like one of those NASA or European Space.
Oh, as if shot by one of the astronauts?
Yes, like here's a tour. Here's Mark Watney giving you the tour of their spaceship and introducing you to the crew with the social media, the tagging that goes along with that, which is it's fantastic. And that isn't going to be part of the movie, I think. So that's you can watch.
That stuff looks amazing.
I'm super, super, super excited. We're gonna have to bring Andy Weir back just to talk about some other stuff.
Yeah. So, speaking of space,
yes,
Norm and I went to DARPA Robotics Challenge this weekend down in.
I'm so jealous. I got invited and I couldn't go.
So on the airplane on the way down there, I started reading Neal Stephenson's new book, Seveneves, which is also a space book. It's also, as you would expect from Neal Stephenson, rooted in science.
It's the next book I read.
It is. I think once you start reading it, there's no way we're not going to talk about it on the show. So if you want to go ahead and get a head start, go pick up a copy, start reading it. I bought the Kindle version, and I was having so much fun reading it this morning when I was laying in bed procrastinating getting up that I went and got the Audible so I could whisper sync the voice and do all that. It's really good.
I'm going to do the hard copy.
I have a hard copy. It's coming today. It's $21.
It's a big, giant book.
Yeah. No, I'm still a hard copy guy. I love reading. I've tried to read. I listen to audiobooks, especially since I've got a bunch of commuting this week for Mythbusters. I have a book that I'm reading. I'm reading the new book by the guy who wrote Clockers, and his name is escaping me, but it's called The Samaritan, and it's really, really wonderful and intense, and I'm enjoying it. But with Neal's book, it's all about having it in your hand.
This is, I'm a little bit more than halfway through. It is right up there with Snow Crash and Victorian Age and Cryptonomicon and an Anthem.
Diamond Age.
For me, sorry, Diamond Age. I was thinking the Victorian cult anyway, Diamond Age. It's right up there with the very best.
Excellent.
31 hours audiobook. So plan
do
accordingly.
You, for one, welcome our new robot overlords? Is that what you took away from DARPA?
Okay, so we should explain what this is first.
Yes.
Every few years, DARPA issues challenges.
DARPA is?
The Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration.
Yes.
It's the U.S. military's research and their moonshots division.
It's their think tank, kind of,
Where they try all sorts of outlandish things, and some of them become real things, and lots of research, pure research is done. And
in association with universities and private companies.
And they have contests.
Yes.
Right. So they issue these challenges every few years, and there's frequently more than one going on at a time. A few years ago, you probably saw a bunch of videos of cars driving around in the desert, and that was about autonomous vehicles.
It was an amazing success that actually Google stepped in and generated Google's autonomous car division based on the two winners of that DARPA challenge.
So they do two sides. First, they offer a very large prize. It's like a $2 or $3 million prize pool, depending on the challenge. But they also fund researchers at universities and even private companies, issue grants to work toward these goals. So the idea, I think, is that you get a lot of brains working on it in different directions, and there's some people that rolled into this with like $12,000 robots, some people that rolled into this with $2 million robots, some people that rolled into this with software that they'd written for loaner robots from Boston Dynamics.
Right.
And you get a bunch of different approaches from people, universities and groups from around the world. So this challenge that they were running this weekend was the finals for the search and rescue robot challenge. I think probably the first time they've done this, but I'm not sure about that. And the challenge itself is a course. It's an obstacle course. So the robots start.
Do the robots have to be of a certain form factor?
No. They can be whatever.
They can be on wheels, on tanks, on treads. Yes. They can be mice. They can be multiple swarm bots.
But the parameters of the course almost dictate, because the parameters of the course are the human environments, the car that the robot has to get out of.
So sort of like a Fukushima.
It's exactly Fukushima.
Oh, really?
To the Fukushima.
Like literally, one of the challenges, we wanted to set up a Fukushima-like situation because there was.
Shoot. Okay, that's awesome. I didn't realize.
No, it's good. It's good. They set up the Fukushima situation so that, because there was a situation where there was a valve deep in the power plant where it was heavily irradiated, and people couldn't spend enough time in the radiation zone to get there and turn the valve.
Right.
And had they been able to turn the valve, it would have prevented the containment vessels from rupturing, and it would have been much less of a bad disaster.
Wow.
So these robots have to ride in like a four-wheel. It's a Polaris like mule type thing, like a four-wheel golf cart, a fancy off-road golf cart.
Yeah.
They have to ride 500 meters in that, navigate a couple of obstacles, get out of the vehicle. Walk over to a door, open the door, go through the door, flip a breaker, pull a lever, turn a valve, cut a hole, maybe put some plugs, like move a wire from one socket to another, and then egress either over rubble or clearing a path through some rubble. There's two choices there, and then climb some stairs and get out. Each obstacle they pass, they get a point. And they can choose to use the off-road vehicle, or they can choose to just walk. There's a time limit of an hour. So each obstacle you pass, you get a point.
Contest.
Oh, it's amazing. You get a point, and the tiebreakers are done by time.
Yeah.
So absolutely fascinating. This whole experience,
which is it's amazing because when you think about the challenges that we put humans through, like in popular culture, American like the Ninja Warrior TV show,
right.
You have these guys that do these incredible obstacle courses. The robots are so far removed from that. We're talking about some of the smartest roboticists in the world making robots that can barely by themselves stand up and open a door.
And this is something that if you put a human through the same course, maybe 3 minutes, maybe 4, depending on how long it took you to drive.
So, I way back in the early 90s, I was I worked as an assistant for a roboticist named Chico McMurtry, who's still operating out of Red Hook, Brooklyn, and is a wonderful robot maker. And we were working on a bipedal robot back then. And from a balance, programming, and movement perspective, just trying to do it through brute force, I have some understanding of just how difficult a technical challenge it is.
I mean, we talk to people who talk about bipedal robots, and all of the stuff that we take for granted,
from our big toe to our inner ear.
Standing.
Yes.
The arch of your foot serving as both a shock absorber and a rebound mechanism, so it stores energy and then pushes it back up into the leg. Like, the reason our bipedal walking is efficient is because the base of our brain basically does an incredible amount of math without any conscious thought whatsoever.
Yeah. And the robots, most of them were bipedal, and the ones developed by Boston Dynamics because they are built to interact with our world. Because the world is made for us. Now,
is this a lot of? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, but the ones that were quadrupeds or have more innovative designs, they have different challenges too, because they need to manage their limb control. The 4 limbs working with each other, and there's just so much. It's all in the software,
and it's still really difficult. I would have thought that some sort of centaur-like robot might be a very ideal. A 4-legged with upright and 2 arms would be a very ideal sort of form factor.
Track base with arms, and NASA JPL did experiment with track base with 2 arms and a really robust center core system. A lot of people, when they watch, they hear about the DARPA Robotics Challenge, watch the videos, they think, oh, this must be a hardware problem. It's, we haven't figured out the perfect design for robots. And that's some of it, but it's mostly in the software.
So did you watch a lot of robots fall over?
So I was going to say, the other important thing about this is these aren't autonomous robots. They're not fully autonomous.
Right.
They're kind of, most of them, it seemed like, are remote controlled with limited autonomy. So instead of saying, go to this door and open it, you say, okay, here's the handle. Here's where the door is. The door opens inward to the right. The handle's at 3 feet above. You paint the handle with a mouse. You reach out, grab it. You turn it down 90 degrees, rotate it down through 90 degrees, and then push. And that opens the door. So they're kind of remote controlled, but kind of not. Like the driver would maybe say, okay, here's where you should put your feet within these constraints. Does that look good to the software? And then the software would model it out and be like, no, I think we can do that. They'd say go, and then it would execute that series of actions. Kind of like the way Curiosity and like the Mars rovers work without the time lag of sending light to Mars.
Let's answer your question.
To answer your question, yes,
lots of robots fell over.
$2 million, crunch like a tree.
Did anybody succeed at the challenge?
The winner was a South Korean team. It wasn't one of the Atlas robots, and I think they had 1 point higher than the Atlas robot, which is the Boston Dynamics one, owned by Google. So Google and Boston Dynamics didn't actually compete. They just donated some of the robots.
They loaned their robots to software.
So they loaned the Atlas robot to, I think, a half dozen teams, maybe.
Oh, fascinating.
And each of those, we talked to one of those teams. We have a video coming with them. I think we talked to team at IHMC. Is that right?
Yeah, from Florida Institute.
From Florida Institute. Yeah, and they basically ran through what they could and couldn't do. So they couldn't tack anything onto the hardware. The hardware was a closed system for them. What they were doing was all software and command and control stuff.
Oh wow!
So like the interesting thing about this is there's all the stuff that we think about doing.
They couldn't come up with different hands or graspers?
I don't know if they could adjust graspers. Okay. He said, the guy that we talked to said that they had a black box. It's possible different people had different setups.
Restrictions.
But the one, like we didn't get to talk to a whole lot of the people who were making the teams because they were obviously really busy all weekend. But yeah, so like one of them, to give you an idea of what happens, one of them had a problem where it came up to it had to turn a valve. One of the things they had to do was turn a valve as at Fukushima. when you think about what the things that you do when you turn a valve, it's a hard valve. It's like a 9-inch diameter.
Yeah.
You're going to subconsciously think, okay, I have to turn this to the left. I should move my right foot out a little bit, shift my weight a little bit to the right, and I'm going to wrench over with my shoulders.
Right.
One of the robots reached out to grab the valve, missed the valve, and I assume because they were running short on time, had already started the shifting and just thump.
Right.
Like, they would. The ways that they failed were way more interesting than the ways that they succeeded, because they would, for example, try to climb out of the 4-wheel drive the ATV, and they'd look like they were doing really well, and then one of the feet would be not quite exactly where the robot thought it was going to be, and then boom,
fascinating,
right, $2 million right on its side. So it was absolutely fascinating. There were a ton of other cool robots there as well. This was at the LA County Fairgrounds at Fairplex.
Oh, okay.
And they had it's a racetrack, among other things. And they had the four identical courses set up in front of the grandstands for the racetrack, so you could kind of move back and forth. They would be running 4 robots through at any given time. Then they also kind of in the intermissions, because each run took an hour. There was usually 20 or 30 minutes in between runs to move the old robot on and move the next robot, move the old robot off and move the next robot on. And they would bring things like Boston Dynamics Spot out to kind of just walk.
Right.
And those robots were incredible, because they were just showing what they were good at, obviously.
Right, yeah.
So it's like those cheetah robots that can run real fast. And it's all in trade-offs. Like, they have really good, motors and servos that can move their arms, but there's not a lot of sensory feedback. They work only great on the terrain. It's the same thing with those YouTube videos. Like, you wrote this thing for Wired saying, like, don't trust a lot of these YouTube videos you watch.
Where you're watching one good take out of 200.
Exactly. And it's the same thing.
Unless you're watching Steph Curry make a basket.
Right. Unless, before the game, not during the game. But, it's too soon.
It's too soon.
We're recording this after Game 2?
Game 2 aired last night, so it wasn't the best moment for it.
Same thing applies to the robot companies. When you're watching a video and the robot's performing incredibly, and like this incredible feat of balance and speed, they did that a lot of times. Yeah.
Well, and it's all stuff that, like, the machine, like, again, it's impossible to overestimate the importance of stuff that the human brain does subconsciously.
Right.
Is there a little dip in the road there? You don't even notice that, but when you put your foot on it, you feel it on the bottom of your foot, and you adjust your gait accordingly.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah,
within the field of robotics like this, of moving, I know that there are I guess in the broadest scale, my understanding is that there's 2 approaches, and they're generally referred to as bottom-up and top-down, and that top-down is the robot has sensors and the ability to sort of try and parse its entire environment and interact with every part of it. And bottom-up is more like Genghis, one of the early 6-legged bots built like an insect with a distributed nervous system, where the legs only know what the leg next to it is doing, but these simple set of instructions give it a tremendous amount of versatility in moving over a complex environment. Was there talk about different approaches to the AI of these robots?
We didn't talk about bottom-up versus top-down, but it seemed like most of these were top-down.
That's what it sounds like.
Most of them were bottom-up, I think.
I think most of these had
they had LiDAR systems, and the robots were not using, because there was the human aspect to it, and the human control. The human could see the kind of mapping of the world and the cameras, but the robot doesn't know any of that.
Right.
The robot has.
But the robot models, there's a model of the robot self in the robot, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember, some of the advances that came out of the MIT Media Lab, the Pogo Stick robot and the Pogo Runner, which were the precursors to Boston Dynamics kind of dynamism. Those come from, instead of I'm going to program how a cheetah runs, I'm pretty sure that Boston Dynamics Big Dog is operating on a much simpler set of instructions in terms of maintaining its balance that give it a curiously biological level of control.
Well, so when they did the Spot demo where they ran Spot up and down the apron in front of the track, they showed a bunch of different gaits that Spot can do, which is kind of what you're talking about. So Spot could do normal horse gaits, like walk, trot, canter, gallop, all that stuff. But then it also did some stuff that I don't think exists in nature. Like it would do a 2 right legs, 2 left legs, 2 right legs, 2 left legs, 2
They're
right
abstracted
legs, 2 left legs.
biomimetics. Like they start off with the influence of nature, whether it's the cheetah or the butterfly,
or diagonal pogos, or all sorts. Like it was.
You can sort of start to experiment with non-biological models of movement that are. So, speaking of that, by the way, I just got word this morning. You remember, most people who watch this remember the Robotics spider?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mine shipped this morning.
I also got my shipping notification.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
I too.
So we can have spider fights.
Oh, that's gonna seem unfair.
A lot of people mentioned that video. Like it was funny because we walked around and talked to a bunch of
one of our most
roboticists.
viewed videos.
It is.
Even like the researchers, they had seen.
Oh, really?
They had been aware of. You get the spider video.
So, right after the Robotics folks reached out to me and said, "Oh, we're going to ship your spider in the next week," and at the moment they had emailed me, there was an article that was making the rounds about an open source prosthetic hand. They were showing it doing its various things.
Is this the one out of Johns Hopkins, or is it something else?
It might be. It's white.
No,
okay.
it's not this one.
So this one was kind of interesting. It had gearing at the knuckles, so clearly a little worm drive rack and pinion gearing system out here to get. But it had a stationary thumb, like a lot of. But they showed someone tying a shoe with this.
So
wow.
And I immediately sent that link to the Robotics guys and said, you're building these really complex movement algorithms. And one of the advances of the new Robotics Spider is, unlike off-the-shelf, rather than using off-the-shelf servos, Robotics has developed its own, which they say has so much less backlash. I don't know how little, but
more torque and less
more
backlash?
torque and less backlash. Less backlash is very hard to do in a servo, but it's perfect for prosthetics. And with their complex movement algorithms, I suggested to them you should really consider using your wonderful technology and mechanical prowess to move into prosthetics, because the stationary thumb and the wrist that doesn't move is very difficult, I think, for people with prosthetics, is from what I've read. And I'd love to see more advancements.
And we did bump into Johns Hopkins, their
Applied
Physics Lab. They had on display one of the hands.
Yes. So this one actually. I haven't seen that.
So this one,
amazing.
There's a video going around right now. New York Times just did a story on it, and this is designed as a prosthetic with, I think, 27 servos just in the hand, but it's a 1-to-1. It's exactly the size of a human hand.
It can do spread fingers. It can do bend. The only one it can't do is bringing the thumb in, I think.
Right.
Is that right?
The only one it can't do is right between the thumb and the index finger. That collapsing, they can't do. But they can map all those servos with invasive and some non-invasive procedures to
fascinating.
to amputees, and they've had some success with like a double amputee with 2 of these arms performing simple tasks with training.
Both ways. So it's not just control; it's also feedback back on pressure, which it turns out really important if you don't want to accidentally crush a block of marble.
Right, exactly. Thanks for that beer. Could I have another one?
Hey, shake. Oh, no, thanks. I'm good.
And that's the stuff.
There's a bunch of guys with broken hands.
Like it is a combination of integration of the newest servos and how they're developing servo technology, not just stuff that we buy off the shelf.
Yeah.
Like they're using servos that are $600,000 each.
Right.
On those robots.
Well, the APL guys were making their own motors. They said, which is amazing. Right. They're doing all their own servos and stuff.
There's been a lot of wonderful advancement in high torque, small motor design over the past few years.
Well, so the other interesting thing that came out of this whole visit is that you know how the evolution of smartphones and the rise of smartphones and cheap ARM processors and IPUs and all the stuff that comes with this cameras has driven development of VR and quadcopters and all that stuff. A lot of the folks that we talked to here were using quadcopter voltage regulators to control the motors in their robots, because they do all the same stuff. They're cheap and they're easy to get and they're reliable.
That's really cool.
So it's all like all of this stuff is connected, right? It all comes out of the phones. Yeah. It all started with the phones after 40 years of computing. Basically.
So when you went to at the end of was it both days? Did you go
Friday? We went Friday and Saturday. Yeah. We didn't stay for Sunday.
Did you is your impression that we're farther along than you thought, or just where you thought, or not as far?
I think the term robotics is so broad, right, that in terms of like autonomous or humanoid robots performing human tasks, they're 1-year-olds. They're the equivalent of 1-year-olds.
Less than that. With first-hand experience of a 1-year-old, these would be some really amazing.
But on the other hand, there's so many advances in the prosthetics, in industrial robots.
Yeah.
When you just take away the variability needed for an autonomous robot, lock it down like we've had in factories, those robots, the amount of precision and control that we get with those is already, it's amazing.
Right, as evidenced by the wonderful katana swinging robot versus that wonderful Japanese samurai.
Yeah.
And you know, putting cameras on them, putting whatever you want on them. So it's a combination of hardware and software.
Part of me, like the cynical internet, chemtrails guy inside that lives deep inside all of us, wondered if this whole thing wasn't put on by DARPA just to make everybody feel better about the murderous death robots that are out there.
Apocalypse, the robot apocalypse.
Exactly. I feel like
as long as Will Smith is on the case, I'll feel okay about it. The other Will Smith.
He doesn't like the robots either.
I'm thinking of iRobot.
Yeah, he had the robot. He had the robot arm.
His authentic 2012 or 2010, whatever it was. I thought I was both impressed and amazed impressed at how far we've come and amazed at how far we go. If you think back to like Asimo and those early bipedal robots.
Did you? So just think about Asimo, right, in your head?
Yeah.
They showed footage of Asimo to Carl Pilkington on Ricky Gervais's podcast, and Carl goes, he's walking as if he shit himself. I was like, that's exactly what he's talking about.
His knees are bent in that crowd.
I got an uncomfortable load, guys. We talked to people about that.
Really?
Yeah, there's people building robots that have more natural strides. This is more efficient, and they're able to do a walking bipedal robot on like 400 watts of draw, which is amazing.
And the whole because walking is actually quite efficient when you're doing it. It's that reverse pendulum falling, grabbing big toe.
Your moment is always ahead of where you are.
It's pretty incredible. The breaking down the mechanics of walking, which has happened over the advances in understanding about what it means to walk over the past 20 years. Because I've been working in robotics, peripheral and directly over that time has been amazing.
Just the stuff that's happened with people understanding how the arch of your foot works has just happened in the last 4 or 5 years.
Really,
something we all have. Yeah. We've all used for thousands and thousands of years. So anyway.
Have you guys talked to Ken Goldberg over at Cal?
No.
We should have him. We should do a thing on Tested on him. He's an old friend of mine from early days, but he's a wonderful
roboticist.
Cool.
Very cool.
I think that's as good a place as any to wrap it up.
All right.
If you have more questions about DARPA.
So 2 things. Anywhere Talking Room.
Yes.
Stay tuned for that.
Coming up.
And we have lots of DARPA videos coming up as well from the Robotics Challenge.
Very exciting.
Those will be a few weeks, I think, actually, right?
So it'll be a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And right now we're doing a promotion.
Oh, right.
So sign up for Tested Premium memberships, or check them out at least, tested.com/membership. Everyone who signs up in this month will get
a limited edition
Adam's a drawing that Adam did in a poster form
of my toolboxes.
Of your ILM toolboxes.
Of my ILM era toolboxes, yes.
We had a bunch of questions from people who are already members and wanted to know how to do this in the coming weeks, not too long before Comic-Con. We'll have a way for you to add on another year to your subscription, and then you'll just get it with
Excellent.
that.
Excellent.
So that'll do it for us this week.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for watching. As always, like us on YouTube, iTunes, all that jazz. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Don't forget, you can now get Piper, an all-in-one home security and home automation system without the fees, and better yet, without the security companies. Packed with a camera, multiple environmental sensors, and even a blaring siren, see exactly what's going on directly from your mobile device with encrypted live or recorded HD videos. There's no wiring required, it's easy to use, and you're completely in control. Starting at $199, you'll have a security system that you can customize to focus on exactly what matters to you. Go to getpiper.com/untitled and collect $25 off any Piper or Piper bundle. Thanks.